is carrying you.
Shalom and Erev Tov. Good evening and welcome to this month's edition of Jerusalem Dispatch ICEJ UK Live. We are the pro-Israel Christian ministry that brings you a closer connection to Israel and the Jewish people. And we have a very special guest joining us today on Jerusalem Dispatch Live. She is inspirational, she is brave, she's courageous, and she's come face to face with evil, the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who vowed to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. And she'll be telling her story in tonight's live Jerusalem Dispatch. And in this program today, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Jacob Greaves. He'll be giving us an update on the ministry of ICEJ UK. Just a reminder, we are live, we are interactive tonight. And if you have a poignant question that you want to ask our special guest, please feel free to do so. Jacob, it was an absolute pleasure getting to know you better, spending time with you and our other good friend, John Gaynham, up there in Edinburgh and Scotland. I know that you did some great filming and seen the results of that in Edinburgh, as well as in that oldest synagogue in Glasgow, which was absolutely stunning, that joint Christian-Jewish event in defense of the Jewish people as well. So, Jacob, could you kindly give us an update on the ministry that is the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, UK, and also the up-and-coming conferences? And firstly, well done for the amazing work that you are doing in terms of promoting ICEJ UK on our social media platforms. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Simon. Yeah, it was so good to spend a bit of time with you in Scotland. And it was really great to connect with the Jewish community there in Glasgow and to do the event there at Garnet Hill Synagogue. It's such a beautiful, unique time when we really get to rub shoulders with the Jewish community and show our love to them. And it really warms my heart when we get to do events like that. So I'm looking forward to more and more like that. And so, we do have some more conferences coming up. As you mentioned, we've got Southampton and London as well. And so if anyone's in that kind of area, or if you feel like traveling, you can go to the ICEJ.UK website. We actually have a new website. Looks kind of nicer, I think, and also easier probably to find. If you go to the homepage, you'll see directly when you arrive the links.
So tell us, our viewers, how they can find the new website and check out for themselves. Because as soon as
it's the same website. It's the same website. Yeah, ICEJ.UK. It's just had like a facelift. You'll be able to find all the details about the events there. Yeah, so that's kind of an update on what's going on with ICEJ. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover there?
Yeah, why don't you pray for tonight's proceedings?
Sure.
and pray for our special guest, who's very brave and courageous. Haven't revealed her name yet, but we will shortly.
Yeah. Lord, thank you for this time together. Lord, thank you for bringing our guest, Katherine, to come and share with us, Lord. And I just pray your blessing over this time. In your name, Yeshua, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So just also a reminder that it's not too late to book your tickets to the biggest tourist event in Israel, the Feast of Tabernacles 2026. And we do have a kind of promo. So if you have some spare time, you haven't been to Israel, or you want to go to Israel and you want to be part of the Feast of Tabernacles this year, let's take a look and reminder of this year's theme. And also you can literally be in Jerusalem. Take a look.
The Lord roars from Zion and utters his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth quake. But the Lord is a stronghold to the people of Israel. Can you hear it?
There we go. That is the Feast of Tabernacles 2026. There's still places if you want to be part of the biggest tourist event in Israel annually, but also if you want to worship the Lord in Jerusalem and show your love and solidarity to the Israeli people who feel isolated, they feel under attack, and to show that love and support from Christians all around the world is so critical, especially at this time. Jacob, the topic of today's discussion really is the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we'll unpack Katherine's story when she went undercover in the world's most dangerous regime, coming face to face with Iran's supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini. Thankfully, he's no longer, but also the other terrorists and the heads of this Islamic Republic of Iran that is hell-bent on Israel's destruction and that of the Jewish people. Just unpack for us, will you, and your thoughts on the Islamic Republic of Iran and its leadership and its sheer hatred of Israel, and how its ideology is very similar to that of the Nazis. And yet here in Britain and the rest of the world, there's a complete indifference and apathy to the threat that this nation poses, not only to Israel, but to the entire free world.
Yeah, I won't take too long because I really want to hear everything that Katherine has come to share with us. But absolutely, I mean, if you look back just at this year, around the turn of the year, all of the protests that were going on, and at that point you felt like there might be a turning or a shift, but that's like, been building for so long. And I think, when you live in Israel, Israelis know and sense the real danger that Iran poses. But I think when you live in the West, as you said, there's more of an apathy. It's because we're very far removed from that supposed threat. It's hard to really almost sometimes believe it or really visualize it. I think when I talk to people, a lot of them seem to explain away the problem or say, well, they don't really mean it. It's actually about X, Y, Z. But I think it's because we live in a very sort of comfortable, removed place, in the West, where we're not faced with, even though they do call for, it's not just Israel that the Iranian regime shout about. It's the West in general. It's the big Satan and the little Satan, and the West is part of that. But yeah, in general, there is an apathy, I think, and all of that feeds into also just a general anti-Israel position and an anti-Semitic position that aligns with Iran's position. So there's also that tension where sometimes people feel, I guess, more aligned almost in a way with Iran because they also are finding a common ground in being anti-Israel. But I think I do think that there are seeds of the tide turning where people are waking up and realizing, that we do have a battle on our hands even over here, in the UK and in the West. So I guess that's just a snapshot of some of my thoughts. But
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit of my penny's worth to this one. I think the world should be outraged, and they're not, about the ordinary Persians of Iran that have literally been murdered in cold blood back in January this year. Anything between 40 and 100,000. That's genocide. And yet Israel defends itself and is accused of being war criminals and committing genocide. And when we see a real genocide in Iran that sponsors Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, everything that's evil, this regime represents and supports. And there's like silence, even from our mainstream media, saying this is a pointless war. What was the point of going into this war? It's caused economic devastation, not realizing that if this regime has nuclear weapons, it's game over. And the world becomes a very, very, very dangerous and unsafe place. Would you like to read out the impressive biography of our special guest today? Her name is Katherine Perez Shakdam, and she is the director of Forums for Foreign Relations, her own think tank. She's been very active and busy with various different Jewish organizations, and is an incredible spokeswoman on behalf of Israel.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Katherine Perez Shakdam is a French-born British political analyst, journalist, and Middle East expert known for her commentary on Islamic affairs, Yemen, and Iran. She gained prominent international attention after reports and discussions highlighted her past access to high-ranking Iranian political figures.
Very good. So, Katherine, warm welcome to Jerusalem Dispatch Live, ICEJ UK. It's an absolute pleasure to have you as our special guest this month to tell your story. And thank you for helping me get some incredible guests on the Middle East report. And you did a good job back in March as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I wanted to say, well, twice thank you, really, because first of all, you've been a great friend. So thank you for your friendship and thank you for the trust and the incredible introduction as ever. But also thank you for the Christian community to be so supportive of Israel and the Jewish people. I really appreciate you.
Well, we appreciate you as well. So, Katherine, tell us about your French background, because you are what you call a Sephardi Jew. And there are two Jewish people. There's Ashkenazis, mainly coming from Eastern Europe and Poland.
Yeah.
And there is the Sephardi Jews that come from the East. And in my opinion, I think the Sephardis are a little bit warmer.
It's more spice, I would say, and
Yeah.
definitely louder. Also, I have been told by friends, but I disagree, that Tunisian Jew have a propensity to exaggerate everything, and we may do just a bit. But essentially, so on my mother's side, French Jews, and they settled in France, eons ago, when it was permitted, obviously, because there's always this kind of love affair with kicking us out for some reason. And as far as my father's family is concerned, so originally from Spain, and then landed in Tunisia, and then Tunisia was invaded by Nazi Germany. And France being the France that it was back then, which meant collaboration with Nazi Germany, my grandparents were sent to a camp in North Tunisia, lost a son. And my father was, I would say, the son of the second chance, in that they were trying to rebuild their lives on the back of the Shoah and tried to not forget, but rebuild. And so I was born on the one side where people had survived the Shoah, barely, and on the other hand, on my mom's side, where they had fought against the Nazi. And this is not to say that my father's family did not fight, but I think the experience were very different from that of my mother's side. So I think I was born in between two worlds where both suffered tremendously, but lived their Judaism very differently. So I'm kind of the product of that. And I think I just came up with my own version of Judaism where I understand it a different way. I understand Zionism to be very different. Although I have to say that my grandfather, my mom's dad, has been and continues to be, even though he passed away a long time ago, a tremendous influence on my life. And everything I do for him because I loved him dearly. Lost my mom when I was 11. And my grandfather became everything to me. And everything I know about Judaism, the love of Israel, and everything else in between, he taught me. So
Amazing. And unpack a little bit more about your grandfather being a war hero in the Second World War, working with the French resistance, which clearly, as you get to know you, Katherine, will understand this is where your traits come from. Your daring traits, your exploit traits come from your grandfather.
That is the best compliment. Thank you for that. Look, if I'm anything like my grandfather, then I think I have succeeded in life.
So tell us now, you got us all intrigued. Tell us all about what he did working with the resistance against the Nazis in occupied Nazi France.
Okay, so my grandfather was, let's just say, somebody let's just say that if you try to tell him what to do, it would not work really well for you. He was very strong-minded, in a beautiful way, but he did not believe in doing nothing. He very much believed that if you see evil, you give it a name, and this is something that we talked about before. But that's what he taught me. I was a little girl, and I could remember him telling me, when you face evil, or you meet evil, you have first to give it a name. So because a name gives power to you, because now you can defeat that thing that you have in front of you. If it's kind of this blob, and you can't give it a real name, you can't defeat it. There's no strategy. And then he told me never ever sit down and allow for evil to grow while you're standing there and watch innocent people pay the price of your cowardice. And so he lived his life this way. And when the Nazi landed, thankfully, my grandfather had the foresight of seeing this evil coming. And so being from the Levi tribe and, carrying the Levi name, I was very proud of it. He had to change his name and had a friend to change his papers so that he could, claim Christendom because that was the only way to survive back then. He did not believe in the faith, but, he took it on to blend in. And he survived. My grandfather survived because of him and part of his family. I mean, only his sister did. Everyone else died. And he fought. He joined the resistance movement. And I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face and until my last day, because people forget 70% and over of the French resistance movement was composed of Jews. Jews fought. So the fallacy that Jews sat and did nothing is not true. They fought, but everyone, fights with the means that they have. Not everyone had the capacity or ability or even opportunity to fight like my grandfather did by picking up a weapon and saying no and trying to free other Jews or trying to break people free or allowing people to run away. Some people were caught in the crossfire and were sent to the camps, and their fight became survival, which I will argue is even maybe the greatest fight, to survive evil. To fight evil is one thing, to survive it is something altogether very different. And so yes, that was my grandfather, and he was caught. My grandmother used to say that he was quite professional at getting caught, but he survived. He survived and went back at it again because he was like, they're not done, neither am I. And then when he was done fighting, and that his body didn't allow it, and he fought with something else, he spoke truth to power. And he taught his granddaughter to do the same. And I hope I did. And my grandmother was very much the same. She was a tiny little woman with enormous fire within her and a love for life that I have never met, never again since she passed away. So yeah, I tried to live my life and make them proud.
Amazing, amazing. I you have to write a book about your grandfather because I want to read about his exploits. But Katherine, tell us about what your life was like growing up in France as a young Jewish girl.
Oh
What was
God,
life like that?
I was a regular Jewish girl. I was privileged. I'm not gonna lie. My father, I mean, look, he wasn't maybe he wasn't the father I wanted, but he was, he did the best he could, I want to believe. He gave me an amazing education, amazing opportunities. I had incredible privilege. I never wanted for anything. And so I think in that way, I was quite not a snob, but I just wasn't aware of my surroundings, not really. Because when you live in this little privileged bubble, you don't know what the world is like. You don't understand intolerance. You don't understand even what it means, to talk about sectarianism. Those things for me were things you've read in books, things that you studied in philosophy classes, when people argued over religion and God. And I was thinking, well, you're trying to own God and the divine. And I was just like, well, that's a silly concept, isn't it? To try to own creation altogether. I mean, like you're just one little person, but never mind. And so I had a very regular, sheltered, secular life because my father, I think, was wrestling with his Jewish identity. So looking back, I understand it. I was a kid. I didn't know, and I wanted to fit in. And because I went to boarding school, because my grandfather did that thing that he had, the highest medal in the land that you could ever get, La Légion d'honneur, which meant that I was allowed to go to the best boarding school in France that is only reserved to the daughters or granddaughters of those men who did fought for France and fought so well that they earned that medal. And it was, of course, I was about the only Jew around. I mean, there were a few, but not many, and certainly not in my year. And so I lived like I think I was being prepared to what I was going to do, in that I had a double life almost, where during the week, I was in a very secular, I would say Christian environment because the girls there were Christians. And so I learned a lot about what it means to be, I would say, Christian French middle class, and I would say even maybe privileged. And then at home, I was being, Sephardi me with my friends, and sometimes going to synagogue if the rabbi could grab me. I was a regular kid, and then life kind of came crashing onto me.
Yeah. And why did you decide to go to London? And why did you decide to
Oh,
kind of, because a lot of French people don't tend to
yeah,
go to England
I
and then
couldn't.
do a LSE degree at London School of Economics.
Okay, so I'm going to spare you the Cosette mo moment of Cinderella, but my mom died, I was 11.
Ah,
My dad remarried secretly. I know it sounds like a movie, but it did. I wasn't allowed to tell my family that he had remarried because he was concerned about the fact that she wasn't Jewish. It's a theme that runs in the family. That, what were going to say. And so I wasn't allowed to say. And so I grew up being very resentful of my dad for abandoning the memory of my mom. That's how I lived it. Abandoning me because I was in boarding school. Not seeing me very often because every time that we had a holiday, I was sent away. Again, people will say, well, yeah, but you had great holidays. Granted, but I felt very much alone. And so let's just say that when I was turned about 16 years old and I had opinions and a mouth to express them, my father didn't appreciate what was coming out of my mouth, and I was very belligerent because I was angry. I was still processing the death of my mom, and I don't think that, when you're a young kid and you don't survive that and come out, I would say, and it's not normal, but I was very damaged. I was in pain, and I was looking for love, and I was looking for direction and a sense of belonging and family. And my dad didn't give it to me. And so I went looking for it somewhere else. And that somewhere else was the UK, thinking I'm going to reinvent myself and put the pain of France, in the back mirror. And and then I just met my future ex-husband. So that was fun for me.
yeah, tell us about your ex-husband because obviously this is a crucial part of your story. Whilst you're studying at London School of Economics, you
Yes.
meet this young Muslim guy from Yemen, get close, you get married, and then after your degree, you decide to go and move to Yemen, of all places.
Yeah, I know, I know. It's just like I do things normally, don't I?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Look, I was 18 again. My defense. I was young and stupid, very foolish. Never had a boyfriend before, and my grandmother kind of imprinted in me this notion, and I think it's a good idea for a girl to, be serious in everything that I do. And that meant for me that when you date somebody, and I'm an ancient dinosaur, of course, you do it in the mind of getting married and having children. And so, here I was, and then this young guy just pays attention to me. It was the first time ever that I felt seen by somebody. Uh, I was thinking, oh, that's it, I'm in love. I don't think I was. I think I was in love with the idea to belong somewhere. I felt so lost. And then obviously coming from this Islamic background, what I thought were values of, stability, understanding, and knowing who he was actually radicalism. But I didn't know what a red flag looked like. I was 18. And so I was thinking, yeah, let's get married. Everything will be fine. The thing that they teach us about, being careful about marrying outside the community, try not doing it at all ever. I was like, nah, it's not. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. They don't know. You're 18, you know everything about life, right? So I did that. I did that. I got married, and I had my beautiful children, and I thank God for them every day. But then I would say the nightmare began. And I think that, look, I would say use me as a cautionary tale. You want to judge me, that's fine. Uh, And I would say don't do it. Not because marrying outside the community is a bad idea. Marrying into an Islamic radical faith is definitely a bad idea because you don't come out of it sometimes not alive. And when you do like me and you have, by the grace of God, you managed, you don't come out the same because things are done, things are said that you can't kind of dial back. And you have to live with the pain and the shame and the PTSD in my case of what was done and what
Yeah.
was said and the damage, emotional, physical. I think it's we talk about being baptized by fire. I think it was a case where my soul was like literally like dipped in hell and I was saved because it's not easy to find yourself in the pit of hell and remain true to who you are, to remember who you are. And I tell you something, if not for the God of Israel, I will not be here. And I mean that. I really mean that because when I was all alone in the dark and there was no one else, because it's you and there's no one to save you, and you have the responsibility of two little souls looking up to you to save them, even if they don't know it yet. You need to dig deep and you can't do it on your own. And he was right there with me. And so when he finds you like that and I hope forgives you, because I hope I have atoned for what I did. You don't stop fighting. You don't ever stop fighting. And I believe that blessings come along the way of us fighting, fighting together, fighting alone, but fighting.
No, absolutely. He does give us that strength.
Yeah.
And it's in our darkest moments. This is
Yeah.
when the Lord reveals his love the most, which is sensational. And Katherine, tell us what you saw of Yemen society, particularly around that time of 2010, that sort of time when there was a lot of Iranian influence over Yemen society, particularly amongst the Shiites.
Sure. So first of all, let me start by saying that I'm going to say something that I think is not being said enough, because Yemen is often described as this, hellish place, which it is now because of the Houthis. When I first arrived in Yemen, it was around 2009. It wasn't that. I'm not going to say it was, heaven on earth, that it was perfect. No, not at all. It's still a Middle Eastern country, which means that you have poverty. The infrastructures are somewhat lacking. Electricity happens sometimes. So there's a lot of things that you need to work around. Okay, this is the Middle East. But at the same time, if you took into account that Yemen was very poor, but on the way of getting better, that it was an Islamic country, but still somewhat secular if you were to compare it to others, like at the time, Saudi Arabia, where women couldn't drive, for example. In Yemen, you could. I would say that under the leadership of Ali Abdullah Saleh, and this is not to say that he was a wonderful president, this is to say that the reality of Yemen under his leadership was a lot better than what it is today. Under the psychos that we see, screaming death to Israel, death to America, death to whoever. So that's important because Yemen was on a trajectory to getting better, a lot better. Women were starting to kind of have rights and to be considered to be human beings, which I know people will smile, but like in the Middle East, it's a thing. If you are able to convince men that a woman is actually a human being, you have won a battle. Because we don't realize it here. Like we think, oh, we have those kind of assumptions, I would say prejudice, positive one maybe, but to think that, oh, everybody thinks like us. No, they don't. And the Middle East is backwards a few hundred years. And this is not to say that they're not people or that I'm disrespectful. I'm stating facts. This is, from observation. Now, when the Houthis really kind of like sunk their teeth into Yemen, we're talking Arab Spring. Do you know that famous, oh, they're discovering democracy moment in the Middle East? No, that was engineered chaos to allow Islamic radicals to have a coming out party. Really, this is what happened. At least it happened in Yemen. And I saw a Yemen that was trying to get to being secular and really separate Islam from, the politics, and people trying to aspire to become more, I would say, modern and to adopt a more Western way of life, in that they wanted their kids to get an education, they wanted their daughters to get an education, women were working. So it was getting a bit better. That got shut down completely. Chaos first. It's always through chaos. And I remember, and I think you will remember too. Do you know in Egypt when it all started, and you had in Tahrir Square, you had all those like students screaming and calling for the Muslim Brotherhood to take over, and they wanted Sharia law and they wanted Sharia this and whatnot. And everybody was smiling, thinking, oh, look at them, they want to express their faith and they want to be strong and they want to be no. Those are the screams of the lunatics coming to get you in the dead of the night, but you don't know it yet because they always use a very nice and polite veneer, telling you like we're friendly. No, you're not. The devil doesn't come to get you with a pitchfork initially. It comes with a smile and seduce you into a full sense of, I would say, reality, but also safety. Thinking I'm okay, we can disagree. No, you can't, because when it gets you, it's game over. You're done. You're cooked. And that's what happened to Yemen. So they started with the NGOs and they started with the media and they started with the young, the students, and then they got to the schools. Because once they get into primary schools and they get to handle the education of your children, it's done. They're not your kids anymore. And then they grab the orphanages. So they got to the most vulnerable of society, they got to them, and then they literally sold them to the devil. And by that, I mean the human traffickers and those people that will brainwash you to an inch of your life, disappear your personality to rebuild another. And when you grab a child early, I would say that the damage are almost impossible to roll back because they imprint an odious face onto a person and they disappear your soul into layers upon layers of trauma and horror. And what they do, and I don't like talking about it, but I'm thinking that we're going to have to, is that we need to understand the architecture of trauma because they do this to society. And it's no wonder today that you see a lot more sexual violence and you start to discover and people start to talk about the sexual violence perpetrated against certain communities and unfortunately mainly the Christian community because they understand that this is what they need to do because this is how you explode society, how you explode a nation. And if you think about it, if you take a family, and I would say the typical construct of a family, and you explode it through trauma, through sexual violence, people will tend to withdraw within themselves because there's shame, there's the fear to tell, there's the legal structure that doesn't allow for the victim to be recognized as a survivor and to be treated with the respect that they've earned and they deserve as a human being, and for the perpetrator to be judged and put away. And then the worst injury is that when they take those people who have suffered those trauma and they force them to replicate the trauma that we done onto them to other people in order to maybe save either each other or themselves or maybe the children. And I don't like talking about this, but they do it. And they do it in Syria. And the reason why you see Syria the way it is today and the way that people were almost silent when horrors were being committed in the name of, their banners. If you look at Lebanon, if you look at Iraq, if you look at all those nations, Yemen, that have fallen to the sword of radical Islam, you will see that certain things are being repeated systematically. You see the arrival of drugs because it numbs your emotions, your feelings, or your ability to even feel empathy towards people, Captagon being that. And then the sexual violence. And when that happened together, the fabric of society is exploded.
Yeah.
Because how can a mother be a mother or a father be a father when those things have happened or they have committed crimes that they can't even talk about? It is that traumatic. But if they didn't, and if they didn't comply with the wishes of the masters, then those horrors would have been done to the kids or maybe the mothers or maybe the sister. So they are being put before impossible choices. This is not to say that those crimes should not be properly judged or looked at. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you need to understand this horror, it's like the little house of horror that the Islamic Republic has created and exploded through its proxies. And unfortunately, this is coming here. So I'm not saying this because I want to paint like a horrible picture of the Middle East because I happen to be from the Middle East and I do love it because hello, Israel. It's not Camelot, it's in the middle of the Middle East. Now, this attempt at destroying, not attempt, they actually succeeded in Yemen and Syria. They have done it. Look at those people, look at the society. It's coming here. The other thing that they do, they erode, and they did it in Yemen. They erode at religious communities, and they're doing it by forcing people to give ground on their identity. And so they push you every day a bit further away. So you would give more ground and you would kind of, I would say, bow, to maybe not their God straight away, because let's be honest, we don't believe in the same God as they do. I certainly don't, and I know that you don't either,
No
because
mental up.
that God is maniacal and evil, and I don't stand it. And this is actually not God. It is a God, and it is theirs. It is not mine and not yours. Now, when you give ground to that, I call it idol worshipping, personally, because you're giving power to a thing that is not, that has no power. And so, but that's what they want you to do, because when you do so, then God can be here.
Yeah.
You have zero weapon against
Your
that.
description of what you just described is exactly the personal accounts I've heard of
Mm.
how the Iranian regime behaves to its own people.
Mhm.
And of course, we're seeing this radicalization within Palestinian with authority, within those in Gaza to commit. I mean, like, I need to do a kind of program, really. I've done one, but unpacking the Civil Commission report produced by the brave and courageous Israeli women, highlighting what Hamas did on October the 7th,
Yeah.
which is
But see, what you
worse than
need
what
to
the Nazis
understand,
committed.
I know, but what you need to understand is that, do you know, a lot of the reasons why a lot of Arabs, a lot of people in the Middle East were not outraged about what happened is not because they didn't believe the Israeli women, they did. I had conversations, they did. Is that for them, and it's going to sound terrible what I'm going to say, it was another Tuesday. You don't understand what they have done, what the regime has done to the region. So when it kind of like crashed into Israel and we saw, for us, because this is not how we live our lives. We love our daughters. We love, like men loves their wives, and it's not there's a society that respects each other. This is not to say that crimes don't take place. Of course they do. There's evil everywhere. But overall, there's certain rules that are not to be broken. I mean, we have a society that works, and that goes for, of course, for the West. Certain things are not done, or when they're done, they're just so abominable that there's an ultimate reaction. They don't. Why? Because they're used to it, not because they're bad people, but you get used to that kind of evil when it's not met with strong men and women to say, this is not how you conduct yourself in society. This is not a godly society. You don't do this in a godly society. Because people gave ground. See, this is what happens when you forget who you worship. This is what happens when you forget who you are and who you speak for, and the essence of you. And it's planned. So this is not something that they do because, oh, the evil and evil is chaotic. No, 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 no. There's order in the chaos. It's systematic, it's well thought out, it's a plan. They draw a psychological map of people in society, and they do it from, it's like, I would say, micro psychology to micro psychology, where it's like first the nation, and then they start to break it down into groups and religious groups, and then down to the individual. And do not discount, because I've had people roll their eyes at me thinking, oh, you're being over dramatic again. First of all, everything that I said would happen has happened in the order I said it would happen. Number one, I was never wrong. I wish I had been, but I wasn't. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Why? Not because I'm special, because I was there and they told me. So this is not me passing judgment or trying to interpret what was said to me. No, they told me, and I'm repeating.
Yeah. So let's tell your story, because this makes total sense when you unpack your story. So tell us why, after living in Yemen and obviously living in a horrific relationship with a horrific family, trying to convert you to Islam, and you're holding on to your identity and stuff as well, why then you decided to pretend to be a journalist who was anti-American, anti the West, so that you could then gain the interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran and its leadership?
Well, look, first of all, if you wanna fight the devil, you have to first kind of adopt its image, I think, because you have to do reconnaissance work and try to figure out, okay, who are you? What do you want? Because it's one thing when, you kind of hear it as, I would say, secondhand knowledge, in that I could hear their spokespeople. I could see the result of what they were doing in Yemen. And also, I think that my motivation mainly was personal, in that I suffered, like in my own flesh, from the things that this regime wanted of women in general, but also how they were trying to, my ex-husband was trying to disappear me as a person, as a Jew. And, I realized, I think he made me realize that it was me. You can't disappear like the Jewish in me, because I am that. I am she. Like, this is not something that you could just wash away or forget or convert, or it's part of my DNA. And I realized that, yeah, that's who I am. That's who I want to be. That's who I always was. And I don't want to be anything else but that. And whatever that means, I'm gonna be that. And I'm gonna be that stronger, more, and braver. And again, when I tell you that, I found him in, I would say, like, in darkness, because there was nothing left of me to fight for. And quite frankly, I was thinking, what's the point? And I almost give up. I almost did. If not for my kids, I would not be here. And he found me in the middle of that. And I was like, okay, so do something with me that matters. And I was given the opportunity to go and fight back. Because look, I'm in the middle of a battleground and I'm thinking, okay, I'm here of my own volition. So it's not like somebody pushed me into it and say, oh, because I can't blame my mistake on someone else. It was me and I own them. And it's fine, because out of the worst time of my life came the greatest gift, is that I was given the opportunity to face them, and in my own way, however small, I think I kind of lived up to my grandfather's name and said, I can look at you in the eye and not cower because I'm not scared of you, because I don't bow to you. And I realized that, actually, do you know the thing that we make up in our heads in terms of fear and the enemy and what they can do to you? The worst thing that anyone could do to you is basically death, which is kind of a promise thing. It's a sure thing. It will happen. Um, when you realize that actually they have nothing over you, because freedom is yours. You have the freedom of choice. I'm not saying you don't pay a price for that choice, because there's always a price. There's something weirdly liberating about knowing that you're fighting for something that is so much greater than yours, with the promise, mother works, isn't the Torah, that actually no, he has you, because they can't touch you. Not really. And dying where death is promised anyway. So what? You're gonna accelerate the process only if he wants it. So come at me. And so I went in there with that, with that kind of bravado. And I wasn't feeling like that the whole time, by the way, because sometimes I was thinking like, okay, you crazy. Um, but you know what? If crazy for Israel, all day, every day, it's been the greatest gift in my life. And I've met wonderful people throughout, this journey because of it. Uh, I I hope, I really hope that in my own little way, I did something to embarrass the regime, to,
So tell
get
us
them
tell us
shaking
what
their
tell us
boots a
what you
little
did
bit.
for our viewers watching. So
Okay, I
you
infiltrated.
you 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 then present yourself as a journalist
Yeah.
who was a kind of white convert to Islam. So you
Well, they
wore
never
the
asked me. See, that's
yeah,
the
but
thing. They
you
never
wore the
did.
hijab. You
Oh yeah,
look
you
like
have to, of
them.
course.
Yeah, so you wore the hijab. Anti-Western, anti-American. You weren't
Yeah.
anti-Israel, but you were
I was
certainly
anti
anti-American,
everything. I had
right?
to become anti everything.
Oh, okay. So what happens then when you come on the radar of the regime and they invite you to
Yeah.
Tehran,
Yeah. So
a nation that wants to wipe Israel and the Jewish people off the face of the planet, and there you are in their capital city. Tell
I
us
know.
more.
Is that crazy? So I
Mad.
set a trap. I set a trap for them, knowing, because again, being in Yemen, and I think proximity helped, and I'll tell you why. There was a gentleman who actually became known as the Khomeini of Yemen, who happened to be my ex-husband's best friend at the time. And so I knew, because I could understand Arabic back then. I was listening to, some of the things that they were talking about. And so I was like, okay, so you have access. And so obviously when it came to vetting me, I'm guessing, it's a guess, that it kind of helped because again, like there was proximity to one of them because they had loads of agents positioned in Yemen. And so, the guy was friend with my ex-husband. I mean, at the time he was my husband. So I think that they saw in me someone that was like super convenient and super easy to control because again, proximity.
Got that wrong, didn't I?
That was the first mistake. And then I adopted because I knew I was in Yemen and to survive, you have to adopt, the mannerism and well, I knew of Islam. So because my ex-husband was Sunni Muslim, I had to learn everything about Shia Islam, which was a lot of fun for me. So I had to read the Quran again. And the second time, I promise you, it wasn't better than the first time. I was like, nah, it's not for me. And there's nothing wrong with people doing it if they want to do it, but that wasn't for me. So anyway, so I basically became what I felt they expected or would want in somebody because I knew they were recruiting people, that they wanted to surround themselves, especially with Western women, or people in general, to kind of parrot away their ideology and to impart into the world that it was such a great liberation, that it was fantastic, that if you were to drink that Kool-Aid, you would become Superman or Superwoman, and then, you would be free together, sing Kumbaya, and blah, blah, blah. So I did that, and they invited me. So I wrote all the things that I knew they would like. Not too much, because you can't, they're very paranoid. So you have to be very measured and kind of like set the net, and then they come to you, and then you pretend that it's a very slow process. You have to be extremely patient and wait for them to invite you, wait for them to tell you things, wait for them. So it was a whole play back and forth, me trying to manipulate my way into it while making them believe that it was really their idea. So that wasn't easy, but I did it. It took me 10 years. So it's not like I woke up one morning and landed in Tehran. It was a very long process. I was very patient, but I was also very dead set on doing everything I could to strike them down.
Yeah.
And I
And
think I did some.
what was the longest period of time that you spent in Iran?
Oh, it's about 2 weeks max at the
2 weeks.
time. I
Yeah.
didn't
And
live there. Some people have made movies about me saying, "Oh, she lived in Yemen, she lived in Iran, she married in Iran." I was like, I don't know who you're reading, but no, no,
no, no. And you were there for some of these big conferences like A
yeah,
World Without Zion,
yeah.
Zionism, and all these kind of things.
Mm.
So tell us the kind of profile of the people you met, because you are one of these exceptional people that have literally come face to face with evil. You had a private
Like
meeting
literally,
with the
yeah,
supreme leader of
yeah.
Iran, Khomeini, but thanks to the
You know,
Israelis, he's no longer here. You
yeah,
met the daughters of the arch terrorists, Imad Munir. You met General Soleimani before the
and his
Americans
daughter,
assassinated him,
and his
and also the guy in charge of the Iranian propaganda. So you kind of met who's who of the
everyone,
Islamic Republic of
yeah,
Iran.
terrorist. Call
So
them
give
that.
us that insight of meeting them, spending time with them, tell them where they're coming from, their ideas, and what they're like as people.
God. Okay, so when the conference that you're referring to was in Tehran in 2017, and you had the who's who of terrorism. I mean, from Hamas, you had Khalid Mashal. Khalid
Whoa.
Mashal was literally 10 meters away from me, screaming, death to the Jews, death to America. And I remember, do you know Marwa Osman, the young woman who was on RT crying that Nasrallah had died? She's also a very popular presenter on Press TV, the Iranian regime television. She turned to me and she said, "Oh, do you need me to translate that?" I said, "No, I think I'm good on the death to America, death to Israel." I said, "I got that one, death to the Jews." I heard it. It was in Arabic, so I know, I know what it means. So that was that. Those were the people. And then you had a few, I would say, Western academics. I'm not going to get into the names, but interesting to see some people there. Interesting to see that some people, for example, when I wrote for Ayatollah Khamenei's website, because I was invited to write for him, not that I did any of the writing, they just want you to put your name to things. They asked me to do interviews. So when you see people to agree to those interviews, you learn quite quickly to figure out where they sit, on that table. So you had, for example, the likes of George Galloway, who agreed to do an interview for Khamenei. You had also, Professor Tariq Ramadan. I think that people will know him for less than fun allegations that were made against him, and I think he was proven guilty. I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say anything. But he was accused of sexual violence, things like that. Those were the people. Those were the people that, figured on the websites. Those, not all of them. Some of the people were there. Yeah, so it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's not the kind of people that you want to invite for Shabbat. Just saying. But those are the people who were there. And I was baffled because you had people coming from all over the place, including America, Canada, the UK, France, and all over the place. People who, some of them were Westerners, some of them the converts, some of them were politicians, some of them were former military, some of them interesting. It's an interesting bunch of people there. And the thing that was said, it was all about destroying Israel. And the thing that shocked me the most, that is still with me, and I think we talked about it, is that, and remember, that was 2017, when Khamenei came up and opened up the conference officially. He said that in 5 years' time, like he put a clock, and there was a clock in Tehran that was actually counting down the days. He put a clock to 5 years, saying that something terrible will happen to the Jewish people in Israel. That would forever change the face of the Jewish world. And I think that October 7th did that. But of course, there was no way of knowing. What I did know is that they were mapping the diaspora. If I'm honest with you, I don't think it was just the Jewish diaspora. I think that what they meant by diaspora was most likely the Judeo-Christian world. Because they want. Okay, so let me rephrase this. There's something that I want to share with you because I thought about it for a long time because and don't hate me for it, but I heard something on TikTok, okay? And then it just completely changed my perspective on the crusade. Because for the longest time, I remember the crusade, and you'll understand why it makes sense. I understood the crusade as being, some kind of, I mean, I would say the first bout of colonialism. And it makes no sense because I was thinking, oh, why are they fighting each other? It's all about sectarianism. That wasn't the nicest, thing that the West did. And then I realized hang on a second. If you actually reread history, it wasn't. It was an act of self-defense. It was a pushback against Islamic, radical Islam invading Christendom back then, and the Vatican had no choice but to call on Christian kings to raise an army and to go fight. And of course, the fight took them to Jerusalem. And I've never thought about it that way, but that's what they were planning. Is basically, let's just say the Crusade 2.0, in that they want to push against the Judeo-Christian world. And as of before, at the time of the Crusade, where Israel was not around in the way that it is today as a Jewish state, I think that I would say the way to Rome was just, like an easier motorway. Let's just use that term. As of now, there's there's a stop along the way, and they have to get rid of Israel before they can get to, to the Vatican or to Christianity in general. And I think that's what we're seeing today, where the planning is actually the death of the Jew-Christian world. They want to take over, and they want to attempt to redo what they did back then, which was to try to capture.
Yeah. Well, if they take Jerusalem, they destroy Israel, they know the West has fallen. And then it's not long before the West can be defeated. But also the reason they're doing that is because of their supersessionist Islamist ideology.
Mm.
Because you are saying here that Allah is the Prophet Muhammad is the final revelation of God. And then you prove that after 2,000 years, the Jewish people have come back into the homeland. Mm. And suddenly this Jewish state emerges in the heart of the Middle East and the Islamic world. It defeats all their armies. And it proves that their God, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, is more powerful than their God. So therefore, to have that superiority, they need to kill the God of Israel, our Judeo-Christian God, Yahweh. So this is what this is essentially about. But what was it like being in the same room and talking to the former supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei? knowing that this is probably one of the most evil men on the planet. And I'm so pleased for what Israel did on the 28th of February this year with that
And
bunker busting bomb. It's literally sending him back to where he belongs.
yeah, no, that I agree. For sure agree. It's not often I'm happy when someone dies, but for that one, I will make an exception, and I did make an exception. I think it was relief for so many people, most particularly Iranians. That man was, I think you put it the right way. For me, and I've met bad people, a lot of bad people. I mean, I've met with Qasem Soleimani. He was a nice man. Um, they
Yeah, and
were,
that's a bit of an understatement.
yeah, but they was he was so unhinged. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, often people say, "Oh, you look in someone's eyes and it's vacant." It wasn't that it was vacant. It was worse than that, if that's possible. Because vacant, you could say, okay, maybe you're a sociopath, maybe you can't experience empathy, but there was something that was so gleeful about it, where he really believed himself to be God. He really believed himself to be Pharaoh and to have the audacity, because people think it's almost theatrical when I say this. The man wanted to kill the God of Israel. And I know that people will roll their eyes and say, oh, they don't take it seriously because they don't take faith seriously. But whether or not you believe in God, people can understand the notion of God if they don't believe. To have a grown man, head of a state, to want, and it's not like he believes, he wants. So he's moving from the belief and the desire to actually doing it. Kill God. Do you understand the lunacy of the person? He's not talking about killing, even though they're doing it now. President Trump, for example, that is bad enough because he's the head of state and he's a human being. You shall not kill and all that. Well, murder, actually. The man is talking about killing God. The fact that you can even say those things and have people follow you and say, fantastic, let's go do that today. But yes, that's what he did. So you need to be so unhinged and to have the capacity to project that desire that you have onto other people, convince them that it's a great idea and for them to join you. Do you understand? Those are the people running the show in Iran. Those people are I don't think there's a word for it because it's evil, but it is purest form. If ever evil had taken human flesh, that is it. And the problem is, it's raising an army. So it's really like, the case when I believe it's in the Bible, I am Legion. This is it. This is what it is. Um, I don't have word for that man, honestly. And the thing that he was saying to me and this his ability to just talk about life and death. It wasn't just ease. With so much disdain, life did not matter. There was no sanctity of anything. It's all about the me. And it's almost, I believe, yeah, it was an anger at the divine. He wanted to own the divine. He wanted to become the divine. He wanted to destroy the divine. And it's insane to me that you could have those thoughts. I don't understand it. I don't understand that level of evil. And I'm glad that I don't, because I don't want to. Because I think that the second that you really start to get too close to that, then it's gonna taint you, and I don't want. But no, he's this regime is abominable, and if ever in our history, in human history, we needed to fight against an ideology, it's this one because it's a negation of God. It's the negation of faith. It's a negation of freedom. It's a negation of everything that was given to us, and it starts with the light. It's the negation of that. And I don't actually even care whether or not people believe in God. If you believe in freedom, if you believe in your capacity to choose and to have agency and to, I don't know, to be free of mind and flesh, fight that. Fight this evil because they're coming for you. And if you think that you holding a banner and saying you're offended will help you, good luck. If you think that, brandishing human rights or what you understand of will help you, good luck. Many have tried, they're dead in Evin prison. It's an unstoppable army. If we don't find the courage to stand up to them and to say no, and it needs to be a hard no. No is the full
Oh,
sentence. We're done.
Catherine, we need to get you in front of President Trump because the MOU
Okay.
understanding, the memorandum of understanding with the Iranian regime that President Trump signed with the president of Iran was nothing but the
Can I
white
say
flag for
something
surrender.
about that? Can I say
Of course,
something?
of
Because
course. We'll
I
finish
want
there and I
you,
will open up to
okay.
questions after that.
I
But
want
thank
you
you.
to consider something with this memorandum of understanding. Let's go back to the fact that President Trump is a man of God, he believes. Okay. Sometimes you need to let evil show its face in order for the people with you to believe you that it is indeed evil. And I think that by signing this memorandum of understanding, knowing that they would betray, knowing that people will witness the lunacy and the lies and, this ability to say one thing and do another that the regime has, that people may really understand, also in the region understand, because Trump forced the regime to accelerate their agenda and to show their hands. And I think that that was the game all along. Genuinely. The man is a smart, I think he's Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Ring. Trump, I think he's genius. I think he had the foresight to understand what they want. And because he understood that, he was able to trick them in showing the world. Because now we have seen it's impossible for people today, after they deliberately murdered, a man with a handicap, and they murdered him and they murdered children and they keep murdering women and all fashions of people. You cannot stand there and say it's not happening. You cannot. They have bombed Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait. What for? They're looking to invade, they're looking to break out. So now people see, once you've seen, you can't say that you haven't. It's impossible for you to say, well, no, it's not true what you've been warning us against all along. I think it was necessary. It's
I think
hard
it's
to
more.
say.
I think it's more complex than that.
I don't know.
I think also in the Middle East, when you open up negotiations, and once you sign something like the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Iranian regime, which was giving them everything they wanted,
Yeah.
sanctions relief, the ability to sell their own oil, there
Yeah.
was no agreement on their ballistic missile program.
Yeah.
There was no guarantees that they would stop their nuclear program,
Uh-huh.
nothing about stopping their support for their terror proxies across the Middle East. Then it was tying Israel's hands to defend herself and protect herself in Lebanon against Hezbollah, became part of that agreement as well. The reality is that next time the negotiations up, that's where the negotiations start from. They don't end. So therefore, the Iranian regime has more concessions, but there's also a darker player behind this, and that is Qatar. And the fact that
Yes.
Qatar has lost billions because the Straits of Hormuz have been closed, which means that this is affecting their regime. And the fact that the Qataris hold us, America, Europe, Britain, they have us because they have total economic power over us. They support the Muslim Brotherhood. And of course, the longer this war goes on, the more this is hurting the Qatari regime. It's affecting their business interests and it's affecting their soft power as well as the hard power by supporting the kind of Muslim Brotherhood. And they are the main agents to spread this Islamic extremism right across the Middle East and particularly in Europe and America to take over. So when you look at those things, Trump had an opportunity to bring about total regime change in Iran and bring regime change to Qatar. And you've got a brand new Middle East.
Yes, but see, with all the thing that you just said, that's exactly what I meant. Because he gave them everything that they could possibly want, and still they could not hold. So they showed their hand, they showed their true face. The world cannot say, "Oh, but you haven't tried, or you haven't negotiated enough," because people were screaming, "How could you give them everything?" He did because he knew they would still betray. So now you know that there is no negotiating with that devil because they will always betray you. Now they have forced the West to realize what the danger was. The Strait of Hormuz. People like me have warned for almost a decade. They will do it. They will do it. It's part of their doctrine. They were going to do it regardless. Now the world knows But at least it has been done, I would say, at a time where the US military is there and prepared. So we squeezed the regime. I think that, look, maybe it wasn't planned this way, but I think that in any case, we're in it now. I'm hoping that people are aware enough to understand that there was no negotiating with that regime, that there's only one way, and it's through.
Yeah. So we really pray that Trump would finish the job off, because we need to be rid of this regime. So I'm so pleased that you got out of Iran
Thank
and
you.
that you got to back to the UK, and I know that you're soon to make Aliyah to Israel, to live back in the promised land, which is another story in itself. And you have a new book coming out all about your incredible life and stuff as well. So we look forward to that. But I will open up to what's the time now? So I think we'll carry on for another 10 minutes and ask our wonderful viewers if they have any questions. And then I'll hand over to Jacob, a bit of reflection before we go. But your story is fascinating, and just really appreciate
Thank
you
you,
sharing
Simon.
everything that you've shared with us today. And it's not until you come face to face with evil that people need to be warned what evil is and what it looks like, and particularly comes out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So, right. So, yeah, so Joanne's already put, does anyone have a question yet? So I'll just see if we've got anything on this one. Q&A, here we go. So this is from Veronica, and she writes, well, Khomeini was obviously demon possessed. Yes, the Antichrist spirit. The problem is we can't kill the spirit, only by prayer and moving in the spirit with God's help. It's time that the West was unblinded to the spiritual realm. Yes, I believe that Trump has been used by the Lord to show who they are. Very interesting, Katherine, but
Mm.
how will it end? Thanks, Simon. Always so wise. So thank you, Veronica.
Do you want me to answer that?
Please.
I think she's bringing up a very good point. I do believe in fighting because unfortunately we live in this reality. But I do believe also that we need to believe more. I think that people need to really decide because I think the devil has decided for them unless they do. Do you understand what I mean? And when people say, "Oh, I don't believe in God," I often tell them that it's not a question of whether or not you believe in God, because the devil does definitely believe in you. And if you do believe in evil, which you could witness every day, how can you not believe in the divine? Seriously. Now, the other thing that people need to, because I often hear this, and I hope that answers the question. Do you know when people always ask, oh, but God is not doing X, Y, Z, and he's not showing up for me? Okay, well, this is the wrong question. I think that people should ask themselves, what are you doing for God? Are you standing with God? Because people talk about, oh, God needs to stand with me. Are you standing with him? It's a much better question. And if the answer is yes, then you're fine. And if you're not, you may want to, is my
That's
advice.
very true.
When we do that, yes, I believe that Veronica is absolutely right. We will definitely defeat the devil, and we can't do it. We can't defeat the physical without bringing the spiritual into it. That I'm convinced. But they need to work hand in hand together. And I think that the trick is in standing together. When we understand that there is so much power in unity, because, I do believe that there's, even you believe in unity in the Trinity. Okay, so we have different way of expressing that, but I think that we're more or less the same. There is unity in God, which means that because there is a spark of the divine within us, we are all one. When we wake up and actually understand that when we are being told to love our neighbor like we love ourselves, it's because your neighbor is you. It's the same, come from the same source. So you might as well just realize it and stop, this is just a facade, that other people, bad people are using. So yeah, let's start doing that.
Sounds good to me. And because Candice writes, thank you, Katherine, for your amazing contribution to We Believe in Israel. What do you think is the future for Iranians desperate for this evil regime to fall? Great question.
It's a great question. Leadership, the new leadership. A revolution, the end of that regime cannot happen without leadership. And I'm going to tell you what, I've been a great supporter of Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince. What I don't understand is this, is that if someone is king, a king does not wait for an invitation. A king either is or is not. Okay? Like you cannot just be a little bit pregnant. So, if indeed he is Shah, say it, be it, and then lead. Because as long as there's some kind of a, I would say, not misunderstanding, but kind of a blur, like we don't know, is like kind of straddling the line, then the regime has room and oxygen to maintain people under the water. Why? Because when you have legitimacy and you don't step up, then you're taking the place for someone else. You see, like no one can come up and actually do the job. So I think that we need clarity, is that we need in this opposition. Clarity, structure, architecture, organize something. I don't care what it is, but organize something. Otherwise, I would say it's a crime against humanity because 92 plus million people are dying to come out of Egypt. Lead them out, but don't just sit on the fence and wait to see what happens tomorrow. Just lead. That's what's needed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But I mean, the danger is of not confronting this regime now and allowing it to be off the hook is the revenge will be immense. And this is something that Trump needs to take into account. We got one from Leslie, right? So, Katherine, your experience of the protection of God of Israel is clearly authentic and inspiring in this regard. Do you have a regular prayer discipline? Yeah, you're not like most Jewish people I know,
No,
Katherine. That's for
I
sure.
don't. I'm not. Look, I'm not sure. I don't. I have a very look. I think I have. I'm definitely more religious than I was a long time ago. That is for sure. I don't always keep Shabbat. I have a very, I would say, relaxed approach to Judaism, but it's mine. But I do love God very much, and He guides everything I do. And I think it's a very look. I had my relationship to the religious is different from people because I have a lot of trauma because I've seen religious man being very radical. And so I'm always a bit cautious, and I think it comes from trauma. I'm not saying that, there's radicalism everywhere. So I'm very cautious, and I think it's something that I was forced to live so privately. That is just something that I like to keep private, and I find it sometimes complicated to kind of, you know, get out and do it with other people. Don't know why. But I think all in good time, and I think that God accepts you where you are. Right now, I'm where I am, and I just, it's a journey. And I think that everyone will get there in the end. It's just my own pace, but he's definitely with me. And honestly, look, I got two beautiful children that smile at me every day, and that is the face of God for me when I see them. And it's the biggest blessing in the world. And I have the best daughter in the world. Not that I don't love my son, but my daughter is my angel. And I'm going to share something with you because a long time ago, before even I had my son, I had a dream, and he was carrying her in his arms and gave her to me. And I knew then that, okay, for sure, I'm going to have a daughter. And I knew she was going to be the light of my life. And she is that. So whenever I doubt, whenever I feel down, I just have one look at her and I know no, she's my heart. She is. She's everything I'm not. She's everything I want to be. And so when I look at her, I know that God loves me, and that's enough.
Definitely does love you. And look at the ways he looks after you. No one does what you've done and usually comes out alive, let alone to be able to tell the story, let alone to be able to warn the world of the true face of evil, what you experienced. And I think your grandfather would be very, very proud of you.
I
Very
hope
proud.
so. Thank you.
And I'm going to allow Jacob to sum up. Yeah, it's not every day we get someone like Katherine and her story. Give us your reflections and your thoughts, Jacob, in summing up.
Yeah, I barely know where to start, really. I mean, it was amazing just to hear, it sounds like just a snippet of the story. I'm sure, that there's just so much more to it. And, I think you mentioned you have a book. I'll definitely be checking that out because I'd love to hear more of the story. Um, but yeah, I mean, incredible that you had such access, I think, in Tehran and to be able to, share with all of us, like kind of what you saw and just that what we don't get to see, and I think there's a lot of that really helps to kind of understand in a deeper way what we're facing. Um, you know, so yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you. So shall I just pray to wrap up? Yeah. Thank you, Father, for bringing Katherine here today, and thank you for everyone who's joined in the call. And Lord, we just pray that you would strengthen us, and Lord, that we wouldn't, as Katherine said, so much be wondering if you are standing with us, but questioning, are we standing with you, Lord? And strengthen us to stand with you in this world and in the days in which we live. In your name, Yeshua, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Jacob. And just want to thank everyone for watching tonight, for giving up your evening to hear Katherine's remarkable and inspirational story. I think it is so important that we hear her testimony of what it's like coming face to face with evil. And if you want to know more, please watch the interview that I did with her on the Middle East Report. And the great thing about Katherine is you get something different each time. And I certainly got something new and learned new insights and new perspectives tonight. And Katherine, we just want to pray for you, and all of those who are viewers tonight need to really keep Katherine in our prayers, because you're a special woman. You're brave, you're courageous, and you're like a lion. And I dread to think what you're going to do for Israel. Literally, when you get there, the position that the Lord's going to give you, get into politics, get in the Knesset and sort things out, and remind the Israelis what they have to deal with. All right?
No, I don't want to do
Like you're a
that.
true Deborah. You're Deborah. You got that Deborah
I'm
spirit.
an Esther. That's
And
my
an
true
Esther. Well,
name.
let be a
I'm an
Deborah and an
Esther.
Esther spirit, which is wonderful.
There you go.
Definitely. So it's been a pleasure that you can join us tonight. And thank you for watching tonight's live Jerusalem Dispatch ICJ UK. Please support the ministry that is really blessing and standing with Israel and the Jewish people at this time. We know that we're in critical times. We know that we're in dangerous times. We know that Israel is facing international isolation. We know the Jewish people are facing unprecedented Jew hatred, and to be Jewish in the UK now is really difficult. So let's show them love, comfort, and support, but also support this ministry to make a difference in Israel. So thank you for joining us tonight. Shalom, and God bless from us. Thank you.
Catch the wind, he's carrying you.